Assalamu alaikum. Subhanallah. It's crazy time we are staying in these days. There are so many things, so much information available that it's very easy to get distracted or confused or even misled, because there's a lot of propaganda from certain people and certain organizations, including the Chinese. So, I want to talk a little bit about the COVID-19 politics, okay? Because there's a political aspect of this whole thing, okay? Not necessarily meaning that there are politicians that are, using it, although there, of course, there are that as well, but politics meaning how the COVID-19 crisis is influencing how we're doing things in terms of interacting with other people and between different countries and so on. So I will start with the Chinese aspect, which is really the most confusing, maybe scary part of this whole thing. Oh wait, did I turn off? Yeah, okay, good. Just want to make sure I don't get, disconnected because of the connection here. Anyway, so let's look at this whole thing with the Chinese aspect. Now, China has for many years pushed an imperialistic agenda, more from a financial aspect than anything else, okay? What they have done over the last couple of decades is they have, they have basically, from the Chinese government side and through Chinese owned businesses that is basically backed by this Chinese Communist Party, they have in many countries, especially in Asia and Africa, they have put programs into, free programs, because they are not free at all, it just looks free. For example, they opened schools, universities, and hospitals in poor countries, okay, where they didn't have these facilities. So what happened was, for example, in some countries, the Democratic Republic of Congo is one of those places, and so many other countries. It's going to be too long if I'm going to mention each one. So let's say, for example, what they've done, for example, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, they have built some hospitals, and of course, with the partnership through the government there, but it had some conditions attached to it, because they have a lot of mining going on. So by getting these concessions from the government to be able to, oops, it's sliding a little bit. So to be able to mine and get mining rights in these countries, as in competition with some Western countries and so on, so they got the rights by basically building, hospitals and schools and so on. All right, and I don't know, I don't have the numbers, but let's say they spend like a couple of $100 million in building, a number of hospitals and schools and universities and so on. Oh, big deal, right? Because the thing is, at the same time, they are making billions by having no competition whatsoever in mining in those places. So that means that they pretty much set the price, the salaries, the expenses, and of course they give the government under the table some bribes, just to be able to do what they want and even go against some of the laws in those countries, okay? So this is one of the things they've been doing in many countries, and even in Europe and in US, they have been, excuse me, as well as Australia, they have been able to buy companies or to make connections with companies, partnership with companies where they get some favorable conditions in return of starting the business business agreements and so on. So they have basically, just to not make this a long video, they have basically made many deals on giving something which is just a fraction of what they are getting, but looking good, making themselves look good to control this. And through all of these things, and of course also trade agreements, so that means that they have been able, like for example in many of the African countries, if you want to buy something, it's from China. It's very hard to find products that's not made in China, even though there are products made in other countries that are better quality, but they are just not getting imported. Like they get lower custom deals than some of the other countries' import rates. So, for example, like Chinese might get half the customs rate from something imported from France or from US and so on. Yes, it's the dirty deal, dirty business. So they are getting that. So you buy Chinese products, you have Chinese companies and mining companies and other kind of companies running the show in those countries in terms of exploiting those resources and polluting a very a big deal of pollution that would normally not be able to do that. But if they put too much restrictions on those companies in terms of lowering pollution and cleaning up the environment, they are afraid that they will pull back. So because their government is having all of these advantages and bribes and so on. So for the past 2-3 decades, that's what the Chinese imperialistic from the Communist Party side, and even they are pushing their ideologies and so on as much as they could, at least in terms of the politics being favorable to China, so they are giving the Chinese name a good name, a good reputation. So this has been going on for 20-30 years now, and maybe longer, but we have clear signs of these things happening at least for about 30 years. So now this has been going on, and at the same time now we have the situation that there are many Chinese-owned companies in US, in Europe, of course in Africa and Asia and Australia and pretty much everywhere. You have Chinese-owned companies. They own land, they own businesses, you name it. They have a lot of, before this COVID crisis, where legitimately during, according to laws and so on, there are countries that would be afraid for the Chinese to pull out all their financial investments and so on, because some of those countries could risk collapsing. They would go into a serious recession if China just pulled out. With the rights they have, now the situation is different, because the damage that this whole COVID-19 or the CCP virus, as some call it, the Chinese Communist Party virus, that's what some people call it now, and some governments are even calling it that, because the thing is, Chinese Communist Party is running China. No matter how you put it, there's nobody can deny that, and anybody talking against China, and during this pandemic with the CCP virus or COVID-19 virus, people are disappearing. Scientists and doctors are disappearing who have been trying to expose some of the cover-ups, and they have been going on. And right now, one of the cover-ups in China is that they count asymptomatic, meaning people who have the virus but who does not have any symptoms. So they count those people, even they have symptoms, they count them in that category. So they say, oh, we have no cases of clear COVID-19 patients, we have already got rid of the virus, except for one thing. Number one, that was a lie, that was a cover-up. Plus now they have a return of spread of this virus because of the same problem that they pretended and they did not have things under control. So now we have the second surge of COVID-19 happening in China. And most of this is run or covered up by the Chinese Communist Party. Yes, terrible thing. Anyway, so now what happened is many countries, and another thing, by the way, all these countries, okay, who is now outside China, who is suffering from this COVID-19 crisis, pandemic, need surgical masks, protective gowns, all kinds of equipment, ventilators and so on. A lot of these products are made in China. But now the thing is, they for the past 3 months, 4 months maybe even, they have been ordering these products from China, millions of gowns, of facial masks, protective equipment, glasses, all kinds of products they've been ordering from China, and now they have they have received it and find out that so many, in some cases, like in France, they actually had tests. They received COVID-19 tests made in China that was 80% defective. So that means 80% of 2 million tests were 80%. That's 1.6 million kits did not work. And they spent millions of dollars, or French francs, whatever, on buying these products shipped from China, and they were completely rubbish. And the same thing happened with protective gowns. France and Italy and Spain received millions of protective gowns, and the fact is, as soon as they took it out of the box, those protective gowns were falling apart, completely useless. All right? So you have this situation of not having enough of protective equipment because we were depending on China to make it and send it to us, all these other countries, and they're sending us 50 to 80% of faulty equipment. Okay, so now what happens? Of course, many countries are now starting to make their own, but it's too late. Of course, it's better late than never. Obviously, we have to do it because we don't know how long time this crisis will go on. It can happen months and months, even years. We don't know exactly. Nobody is sure. We are hoping within the next couple of months. And I'm talking as a doctor now who keeps track of these things. Okay, and there is a good chance that within the next months, most countries will get it under control, but not eradicate the virus yet. Eradicating the virus can easily take up to the rest of this year. Okay, so you still have to be, very careful. Don't think that, okay, now we got it under control so we can just relax. No, this whole year you will probably have to, the social distancing and protective equipment and so on, you're better off to try and keep that going for at least until the end of the year. Anyway, my point about the equipment is that now many countries are starting to make it themselves. So that's one thing. So we will stop buying from China as far as this equipment is concerned. But another thing that we are doing now, because obviously we can't trust China to supply anything, not just protective equipment, but any electronics, all kinds of things, because they are not producing anything. A lot of companies in China is on lockdown, so they cannot build anything, they cannot ship anything anymore, all right, or maybe 10% of what they used to do. So we have to start making a production of all the things we used to buy from China. This is a good thing. Okay, this is a good thing because of this COVID-19 crisis. A lot of people are dying. A lot of people cannot go to work and so on. So that means that we will go into a recession now. World recession is happening already. Okay, and inshallah, we are, if everything goes okay, we take care, we can come back from the recession. It might take us a year or longer, but slowly we will get back on the, a good condition. But the thing is, we have to start producing things. Every single country have to take back production from China. So it means that if we have surgical masks, we need it in Indonesia, where I am. We need to make our own surgical masks. We need to make our own motorcycles. We need to make our own cars. We need to make our own televisions. We need to make, and a lot of things are produced in Indonesia. And we have to do the same thing in USA. We have to do the same thing in Italy, in France, in Spain, everywhere, in Australia. Every country have to start their own production of all the things that they need, and we have to forget about this global mindset, because a global mindset is one of the problems that is caused this whole pandemic, because everybody want to go everywhere. We want to get everything from everywhere. We don't want to do anything ourselves. Okay, we need to stop that mindset and look at a local mindset. And this is also one of the ways that we can improve the environment. Our nature is suffering, okay? Not to mention the factory farming that's going on. That's one of the reasons why we have the pandemic, why the virus is starting, is from factory farming of animals. In the pig industry, in the poultry industry, in the bovine or cow industry. Those are the three big ones, and even the dairy industry is part of that. We have huge farms that are having chickens. Some farms have more than 1 million chickens in one location. It's completely insane, and this is how this virus is mutating. And I don't want to go into too much details about that, but that's one of the problems. So now, what happens about China, because I gotta be careful I don't sidetrack too much in one topic. So the Chinese problem now is they can't produce, one thing, and a lot of governments are now saying, for example US, they are already spending past $3 trillion in terms of trying to save their own industry and their own population. I mean, one thing is the cost of loss of workforce, loss of lives. There are many reasons why they are losing a lot of money in US, for example, is already past $3 trillion. Okay. So what they are saying is, who's going to pay for this? Who is the cost? We already determined already, and they have many councils. They are looking into, who's to blame, all right? And they already made a conclusion that China is to blame, and that is, I think, a fair conclusion, okay? Because even if you could say that it's our own greed that caused the problem, China covered up. And if they have released the information in middle of December, when they knew it was transferred from human to human, if they have released it right away, all right, we could have maybe saved all this recession and all the many lives. Okay, maybe now it's a couple of million, more than 2 million people already sick from this virus, and I think it's about 100,000 deaths worldwide. But by the time, who knows, at the end of the year, it might be a couple of million who died. Okay, so that 100,000 we are talking about now, that is just a current number, and it can easily change depending on how we deal with it. So it can easily be a million and more. All right. So what they're doing in the United States is they're saying, okay, let's say we know that it's China. we know that China is doing things in the United States. How do we get out the loss of trillions of dollars? How do we get that back? If they are to blame, they should be the ones to pay. And you could say that's a fair logic. So they are confiscating land owned by Chinese, companies owned by Chinese. Some of the debts that they have to China is going to be cleared. So that means that they're going to say, let's say, I don't know exactly how much money US has a debt to China, for example, but I know there is some debt. Let's say it's 1 trillion. They will say, okay, you cost us 3 trillion. We're going to, first of all, that trillion we're not going to give you because you owe us that already. You already cost us that. And then who knows how many companies that are technically Chinese owned. So they're going to say, okay, $2 trillion worth of property in United States. I don't know if they have that much owned in the United States from China, but maybe 1 trillion. So they're going to say, here, that's another trillion we're going to take from you because you caused us this loss of $3 trillion. Yeah, it's crazy, right? And then another thing they're going to do is they're going to say, okay, we need to rely on our own production. Excuse me. Okay, got a little frog in my throat there. I'm not sick, don't worry. Okay, so they're going to say, we have companies, American companies, that are having production done in China. We are going to take back our production, our machineries and so on, and our know-how, and take it back to the United States and employ American workers. Fair enough, in my opinion. Okay, so this is what is happening now. This is what is happening now, that they are preparing these political moves that they're going to do as a result of this COVID-19 crisis, CCP, virus, whatever you want to call it, corona, blah, 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 Anyway, now that's that's United States. Many other countries are now starting to do that, including Australia. So United States is setting the wheels in motion, and Australia is already, I think Australia actually did it before even US had started that move. And because of that, you will see many Western countries, and hopefully African countries, are taking back their mineral rights and so on, and saying, we lost how many billions of dollars to China because of this. So Chinese mineral rights, we're going to take it back, right? And because they already have the infrastructure now to do the mining, so they're going to let maybe their own government will take control, and then they will employ their own people to do those things that they're technically already doing it, but the Chinese are overseeing it and getting the profit, so now they will, hopefully not corruption or anything like that, but we'll see. But that's the move that's going to be happening. A lot of countries will take back these things from China. Now the problem is, what is China going to do? And that can be a scary situation, because we have a potential of a third world war happening. Okay, because I don't know, it was that thing, it got paused. Okay, so it got paused for a second because of the voice to text or something. Anyway, never mind. So let me see where I was at. So what is China going to do in this situation? Because they're not going to take it lying down. Because they're going to lose. I mean, there's a potential of, if all these countries take their production back to their own countries and cutting ties, financial ties with China, is going to be such a huge loss for China that China could collapse. Politically and financially, they could collapse. They might not, accept that. They might. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, I can't speculate about that, but it might be an ugly mess. And there's a potential of the third world war actually happening from this. It's not, But one thing that is very likely to happen, that is technically already starting, is global recession. All right. So how? So this is now my conclusion in this video. I will just talk about this for a minute, or a couple of minutes. What are you going to do? Okay, I will just tell you what I have done so far, and what I will be doing that I'm in the process of doing. So we have the financial aspects. What I've done. Okay, and I would have done more if I could, but I've done it within my own limits. Okay, I have bought gold. Not a lot. I'm not sitting on a gold mine here. Okay, don't think about that. It's not like that. But I have bought gold equivalent of the financial needs for 6 months. So that means that if there is a short recession of 6 months, we have the gold that equivalent of what we would need. Because if there is a recession, the value of the Indonesian rupiah, it can collapse. And it happened in the 90s that it collapsed, where I don't remember exactly how many percent, but let's say this glass is 100,000 rupiah. If the recession happens, this could cost, instead of 100,000 rupiah, it could cost 1 million. Okay, so that means that if I have money in the bank, if I have 10 million in the bank, it would be worth maybe 1 million. All right, and because this is similar with what happened, it was like, the value is like, a tenth of what it was before. So if you have a lot of money, real money, paper money in the bank, right, you could lose it all, or you could lose, it could be, there could be a devaluation so much that it's, worth nothing. But if you have gold or silver or both, it doesn't have that problem, because it's very rare that the gold will fall in value. Usually it goes up, and sometimes it goes a little bit down, and then it goes a little bit up, but the gold for the last 1,000+ years have been holding steady in terms of what you can buy for a piece of gold. Like 1 gram of gold, for example, let's say it buys you this watch. Okay, maybe 50 years from now, a similar watch, would cost 1 gram of gold. But where this might cost you, let's say 10 million rupiah, this is a Swiss watch, it's quite good actually. That's why it's not a cheap watch, okay? That's why it's going to last in the future. It's not a watch that lasts me a year and then it's just rubbish that I might buy for 1 million. I buy one for 10 million, and that will keep the quality for 10 years or 20 or 30 years. So sometimes you invest in quality rather than quantity. Anyway, my point is, I might buy this for 10 million today, but 10 years from now, this same watch, because of the inflation and because of recession, it might cost 100 million. Okay, but it will cost me 1 gram of gold, actually more like 10 gram of gold now, but 10 years from now, it will still cost me about 10 gram of gold. I hope you understand the logic here, because that's how gold is. So that's the first thing I did. I quickly took what money we had and turned it into gold. And so that will last us about 6 months if there is a crash, financial crash. All right? So that's the first thing I did. Now another thing, because you can't eat gold, obviously. So what we did was we took, we've been, for the last couple of months, when we knew this was happening, we bought dried goods, meaning food that is dried, like rice and beans, different kind of beans, okay, brown rice, not the rubbish white rice, obviously, because brown rice is the only kind of rice that's, good. Brown and red, and the black, black rice is, not polished, so that's also okay. And as well as we bought pasta and couscous, all these things that if you put it in a box, you can open it in a year and it will still be okay to eat, or maybe even 2 years. So we have made sure that in our home, okay, we have food for at least 6 months. At least 6 months. And we are working on building up maybe 1 to 1.5 years, because after 1.5 years, it's hard to have foods that are good enough to eat. So we are building up slowly, and I would advise anybody watching this video, besides buying some gold, just a small amount, even like maybe 50 gram, if you can manage 50 gram, 10 gram, because if there's a collapse, at least you can manage for a couple of months. In our case, we calculated how much do we use per month, and it's equivalent about 10 gram, because we have a big family. If we want to buy the food right now for a whole family of 10 people, or 12 people actually, for 12 people for a month, it's 10 gram of gold. So we have, actually it's 50 grams, so we can stretch it to 6 months if we want to, maybe even 7 or 8 months. And if I can find a good deal on some gold, I might buy another couple of grams of gold. I want to try and build up to 1 year of gold reserve, so if there is a collapse, we can buy what we need for a year. But at the same time, we also try to stock food for a year, those things that can last. Of course, fresh vegetables, sooner or later it will be very hard to get fresh vegetables, so therefore you don't want to buy fresh vegetables. You want to buy dried stuff. You buy the fresh vegetables on a daily basis or once a week, but the dry stuff, you save up some money and buy it. And the sooner you buy it, the better for you. Because the thing is, if you wait another month, the prices will go up because of recession and because of supply and demand. So you want to make sure that you build this up. Don't go crazy now. Don't be paranoid and say, oh, you go completely, paranoid here. It's sooner, it will come, it will pass. But just make sure you have at least a couple of months of food reserve for your family. At least a couple of months. I would say 3 months is a minimum. Because when this recession happens, there will be like the short-term effect, which will be panic, and people are gonna, try to go crazy and stock up on foods and all of that stuff. All right, so it will be hard to get stuff, and then sooner or later, we'll go back in certain kind of some limited production, so we can still get, and there will be government restrictions on how much you can buy and so on. So therefore, if you're a little bit smart, you want to build up maybe 3 months of supplies. Okay, I think we, as a family, we have about 6 months supply. We are building on a year, but it can be difficult for most families to build up for a year of supplies. If you can, yeah, go ahead. But it's not easy to find. Even now, we are trying to get from many different places just to manage to build up for a year. And I don't think we can, even if we are trying. But slowly, maybe every month we'll buy what we need for 2 months, and 1 month we put aside. 1 month we'll eat, and next month we put another month aside. So maybe in 6 months we'll have a whole year. We're trying, but I don't know if it will be possible, because of the effects already in place. We are already seeing the effects of this global crisis, the recession and so on, and food supplies because of production. And because of course people are overreacting sometimes, so they're getting, some of the things people are buying, toilet paper, some people are going, you want to go and get toilet paper, you might not find any toilet paper. Alhamdulillah, we don't use toilet paper because we use water, so that's good for us. We don't need that. We don't, and we can eat toilet paper, right? So it's better. So anyway, you want to do that. That's another thing you want to do. So buy some gold, get some dried goods, healthy dried goods. Okay, not all the junk food, all this processed food you might buy. No, buy beans, buy rice. Okay, maybe whole wheat pasta, not the white pasta, you know, that's garbage, right? Whole wheat pasta, canned tomatoes, canned tomato paste, maybe canned vegetables, you know, because there will be a time when vegetables are a little bit difficult to find, so you can just pass those couple of months until they will be available again in proper amounts. And of course, stay healthy. And as we have mentioned in some of the previous videos, you want to make sure that you boost your immune system. Healthy, whole food, plant-based diet, which means avoid meat, fish, chicken, dairy, milk, egg, cheese, all of those things, because they are not good for the immune system, and they are inflammatory foods. They increase inflammation in the body, and therefore is something that the virus likes, okay, and it's just not healthy. So if you buy whole food, plant-based, meaning real vegetables, beans, grains, seeds, all of these kind of things, and there's so many, you can Google it, you can check on YouTube, there are so many recipes you can find, you know, it's so easy. If you have the chance, get an instant pot, what do you call it, pressure cooker, a slow cooker, all kinds of, there are so many ways that you can cook these things easy and keeping the nutrition. A pressure cooker is probably the most nutritious way of cooking food today. All right, an instant pot is just an electronic version, but you can just use a normal slow pressure cooker and you can get the same result. It just takes a little bit of, you know, learning how to use it, while the electronic version is more quick to learn. And we have one of those, and if you saw my posts, some of the pictures, we are eating delicious food, very nutritious. So nutrition is important in surviving this virus. And then antiviral, okay, there are many antiviral herbs, but just to mention something that is easy to find and is very effective, the two top tools that we use as a family is ginger. We drink a lot of ginger tea. It's basically just ginger sliced in hot water, and we drink it, you know, and it's antiviral. And as well as eating raw garlic. Every time we eat, we take raw garlic and sprinkle on our food, because cooked garlic doesn't have those allicin and all of these chemicals that has antiviral properties. So that's another thing you want to do. Eat antiviral herbs and foods, okay, besides the nutritious, packed with nutrition, whole food, plant-based. And then, of course, as I mentioned in some other videos, you want to try and implement the hydrotherapy, not just general hydrotherapy. It's a type of hydrotherapy that's a thermal hydrotherapy, where you're using hot and cold, and it's basically taking very hot showers and turn on to the cold and stand in the cold, and this will actually boost the production of natural killer cells in your body that will fight the virus. Saunas are great if it's followed by a cold shower. And then, of course, B12 vitamins, D vitamins, D supplements if you can't go out. Otherwise, go out and get as much sun as you can. Just don't get sunburn, of course. All of this stuff that people are talking about with C vitamin, oh, you gotta take C vitamin, is garbage. Okay, don't do it. Eat fruits and vegetables that is high in C vitamin, because even you take supplements of C vitamin, it doesn't absorb in the body effectively. So it's just a waste. It's just expensive pee. Yes, you pee it all out anyway. It just goes straight to your body. You don't absorb it in your bloodstream properly and into your muscles and in the organs that needs it. Okay, so that's another thing you can do, those saunas. Another thing is, and that might sound a little bit, you know, tree hugging type mentality, but the fact is, take walks in the forest. There is medical research, real medical research. It's not just tree hugging fanatics like me. I'm a doctor, but I'm also a little bit of a hippie. I use natural medicine. But I can tell you, it's already proven, and there are many Westerners, modern medical doctors who are already recognizing the fact that there are alternative medicine and natural medicine that is very useful in this COVID-19 crisis. And the fact is, we already have evidence that walking in a forest, especially in a pine forest or in general in a forest, increases natural killer cells and it reduces stress and toxicity in the body. Mentally it helps you, and physically it helps you to boost your immune system. That is already recognized by science now. Okay, so if you are near a forest, don't go in big groups. Go take your family, go there, avoid people, right? Avoid people, but go in the forest, take a walk, make sure you are safe. You don't want some crazy people attacking you or whatever, people might do. There are still rapists and killers in the world today, even we have this situation. So still, think about your safety, not just safety from the virus, but safety from people who are stupid and crazy, okay? So, or mockers or robbers or whatever, you still have to think about those things still happen today, all right? There are still people doing these things. So, stay safe, if maybe I'll make another video on how to use a safe defense tool like this one, okay, as a self-defense. Maybe I will make a video about that because there's a need for protection in these crazy times when people are doing other things and maybe going a little paranoid. So that's another thing. And that's pretty much what I want to talk about. So prepare yourself physically, mentally, and financially to get past this situation we are in. Because even we might control in a couple of months or up to a year, we might get this COVID-19 under control, but then we still have the financial and political aftermath that we have to deal with, and that is something that is very easy to make the wrong decisions, and it's also easy to make the right decisions, and it's all based on thinking about the facts and prepare yourself. Okay, I spent these days, because I'm not working full time, I'm just guiding some people, including my family. So I take my time, and I know the experts personally. Many of these doctors and scientists, they're my personal friends actually. Some of them are my teachers, and some of them I'm their teacher actually. But we stay in touch and we exchange information, and we know it's not propaganda or some conspiracy and all of these things that people are talking about today. This is happening. Okay, the COVID-19 is not fake. It's not whether it's developed in a lab or whether it came from a bat. It didn't come from a bat, I can tell you that, because there was no bat in that market where it supposedly came from a bat. They didn't have any bats there. It's already proven. So there's a good chance it started from a lab, but that doesn't change the situation we are in. So where it came from, why it happened, is irrelevant right now, because we are dealing with not dying. Okay, there's a little bit of priority. Okay. And then, of course, the recession. So we know what's going on. We know the result. We know what is the actual things that are happening. And we can see the recession starting. So we're also dealing with that. So it's up to you to do your best, to prepare yourself and to save yourself financially, mentally, and physically, and to take care of your family. So I hope you take some of my advice as much as you can. Whatever you decide is up to you. I'm not trying to tell people what to do. I'm just telling you from my own aspect and from what knowledge I have from those people that I trust and I know are giving the right, correct information, true information. All right? So you can take it as you wish. So until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.